Hello and welcome back to the MLB DFS Slate breakdown for Friday, April 12th. We're back. We got a big boy slate today, a ton of games to go over. And before we do, come join us at LineStar. $39.99 per month gets you access to everything we do. All the props, all the DFS, all the tools. You get it all. One low price for every sport we cover. That one price gets everything. Now, let's get into the slate. Today we are going to just skip the yesterday review. The reason being is it was a very weird day. 5 games on DraftKings, 2 or 3 on FanDuel, and their postponements, and, just not worth really getting into too much. Now, somebody did say that they wanted a little more emphasis on pitching for me, and that they like to watch to know who I'm going with for pitching. So I'm going to try and dig more into that and definitely highlight a few more guys than I have been, I guess. All right. So starting on DraftKings 12 game slate, actually 11 because Yankees and Cleveland already postponed. There are a couple other weather spots to consider, but the big thing here is there is just a ton of wind tonight. So, we might see a couple extra home run balls. However, it's also cooler temperatures, so that will negate the winds a little bit as well. Now, DraftKings pitchers, high ownership. Jake Irvin right now is going as the high-owned pitcher, and it's against Oakland. So I understand why people are going there a little bit, but it's not like Jake is anything to write home about. 19% K rate. Oakland only came 23% versus righty. So I don't love the upside. There is some safety here with Oakland, the fact that it is going against Oakland, but I can't get with it if he's at that kind of ownership with a lack of real serious upside here. We have a combined K rate of 22%, which I guess is decent at 5.2K. It is definitely a spot you can consider. I just don't love it. Probably not really good in there. Freddie Peralta. I'm kind of surprised to see he is the second highest pitcher, but he is definitely one of the more talented pitchers on this slate. It's not a great spot versus Baltimore. Baltimore obviously is a very good offense. They hit righties hard, but their WOBA is actually fairly low and striking out 28%. Meanwhile, Peralta, we know big time K stuff, 35% K rate. So I do like Peralta, and I think his ownership might drop a little bit throughout the day, so I'm absolutely intrigued. If he is at lower ownership, I'm going to have a ton. Where he's at, I'm definitely going to have some, and probably, around the field-ish, maybe slightly higher at 20% owned as we're showing. Combined K rate is solid. Definitely like Peralta. Next, Andrew Abbott. He and Jake Irvin had the 2 best matchups on this slate. The Chicago White Sox, they're without some of their better hitters here, and that is tough because they are absolutely terrible team. Now, Abbott hasn't been that great. 4.29 FIP, 26.8% K rate over his last 20 starts, but over his last 5, 4.62 and 22% K rate. So we do need that K rate to jump up a little bit, but this spot is just crazy good. White Sox, 0.099 ISO versus lefties, 0.251 WOBA, which is incredibly low, and striking out at almost 25%. Our combined K rate, 26%. I think Andrew Abbott's in a very, very interesting spot, and I'm definitely going to get some. He doesn't always have the highest ceiling in the world, though, and that worries me a little bit, but I'm gonna get some. I like him. Don't absolutely love him. Kevin Gausman coming in, one of the higher owned guys as well. And this is a spot we really do need to talk about because Colorado is terrible versus righties. 29% K rate. However, their WOBA's okay. Their ISO's okay. But the big thing here is that Gausman has not been, who he has been the last couple of years so far this season. Part of that is look, he got hurt in spring training, had some elbow soreness or, fatigue in his shoulder, and came out first game, was okay. Threw 69 pitches, though. Next game, came out, threw 51 pitches, got absolutely destroyed by the Yankees. But my worry here is he has now gone 2 games, hasn't thrown over 70 pitches. I would be very surprised if they're like, all right, Gausman, you're good. Go for 100. I think he's probably a little limited here. And at 10K, it's a little scary with how he has been pitching so far. I absolutely will take some swings on him because how good he has been, for the last couple years. But I am big time worried about a little bit of a pitch limit. If he is limited to like 80 or so, and, we hear this throughout the day, I will be totally out. I just don't think that's enough pitches. Now, he is somebody that can be very efficient and work deep into games on limited pitches, but I think if that's the case, there's just more room for error. However, there is big-time strikeout upside in this matchup. 29% combined K rate is absolutely interesting. I'm going to have some Gausman, but definitely going to be looking at news throughout the day on what's going on with him and a possible limit. If he goes up in ownership, my personal ownership will be less of him. All right, so those are kind of the big dogs, the higher owned, and then I wanted to get into a couple pivots. Luis Severino, I think, is very interesting at 6,800. He's been fairly good so far. I mean, he got crushed his first game, 6 earned runs, but he had at least 6 Ks, and then versus Cincinnati only gave up 1 earned run on 7 Ks, 5 innings. He is facing a Royals team that has been hitting the ball very, very well lately. But I am absolutely intrigued. He's not giving up a lot of hard contact, a ton of ground balls. I'm going to have some Severino. It seems like his K rate is back up, where last year it was very, very low. And we were all wondering kind of what was going on with him. It seems like he's healthy now. Combined K rate at 24 at 70 or 6.8 is pretty interesting. Decent umpire. I'm intrigued. At least take some swings here. Next, we got to talk about Max Fried. Max Fried has looked absolutely awful. He is going low owned, likely because of that. But at least he got up near 100 pitches, 7 earned runs last game, 5 Ks. But he has faced 2 good offenses, so I'm going to give him a little bit of a pass. We know who he is as a pitcher. Over the last few years, he is very good. Not super high strikeout stuff, but very good at limiting runs and working deeper into games. Now, he also is averaging 68 more fantasy points when he is away. He has a good ump. And Miami is bad versus lefties. 288 WOBA, 125 ISO. Those are numbers that are almost like the Chicago White Sox. So it is a very interesting matchup in that case. The one worry is he doesn't have the strikeout ceiling that some of the other higher price guys have. We only have him at a 22% combined K rate. So he has to work deep into the game and overshoot that 22% K rate by a little bit to really get it done. So I understand why people are going a little lower on him, but at low ownership, I'm a little interested if he's really going to go this low owned in with how solid of a pitcher he is. Next, Brandon Pfaff. Brandon Pfaff did very, very well against Colorado. Got killed against Atlanta, but hey, that is the Atlanta Braves. I'm going to give him a little bit of a pass for that. Cardinals versus righties, 294 WOBA, 140 ISO, haven't been good. Meanwhile, Pfaff, over his last 5 starts, 31% K rate. Over his last 25% K rate. Now, I want to remind you that he did get sent down to the minors last year for a little while. And when he came up, that K rate was way higher. And that 31% is a little bit more of that for what we're seeing here. So I think he is a little bit more of the 28 to 30% K rate rather than the 25% K rate guy. And he's in a decent spot versus the Cardinals at 7,500. We have a 26.7% K rate on him, combined K rate on him. I think it's a very interesting spot at home, even though there's a pretty high over-under here. I am interested in taking some swings on Paft. And then next, I got to bring up Jordan Wicks. Like, look what he had Texas and the Dodgers. He struck out 13 batters in 8.2 innings for two of the best offenses in the league. He now gets the Mariners, who have been bad. They only have a 140 ISO versus lefties, 334 WOBA, so they're at least getting on base here, and they're striking out 23%. I think it's an interesting spot where nobody is going to go, and it's a way better matchup than what we have seen him get so far this year. So I'm kind of interested in taking some swings. And if you look at the opponent team splits, hitting 219 off lefties, 110 ISO over the last 20 games. Only a 20% K rate is the issue there, but combined K rate 21%. But if he's striking out guys like, the last 2 games with 6 and 7 Ks, at his price, he's very intriguing. I'm willing to take some shots here. I do kind of like Wicks at the super low price. I know people are going to talk about Detmers a little bit and Huck, so I'll touch on them. There's 20-mile-an-hour winds blowing out. Detmers is a fly ball pitcher, 44% fly ball so far this season. So I am a little worried about going with him. His K rate has been super high so far this year. So it's intriguing, but I'm a little worried about this Boston offense versus Detmers and the fly balls with the weather. Now, they haven't been great versus lefties, so you can definitely take some swings on him if you want. And then Tanner Huck. Tanner Huck's been way worse at home than he has away. It's like a 330 BABIP at home, 260 away. I just can't lean into that kind of at-home numbers when he's been very good so far this year. I just don't know if that's going to keep up at home. All right, getting over to FanDuel here. Highest owned pitcher, Kevin Gausman. I can't do it on FanDuel. I can't follow it. 35% ownership on Gausman with how bad he's been and the potential of a limit. So I'm not going to say I'm totally out on him, but I'm not going to have anywhere near 35%. Andrew Abbott, absolutely a little interested. Talked about him already. Detmers, I'm not going to do it as one of the higher owned guys in this spot. I do kind of like him on DraftKings, as I said, though. Freddie Peralta, definitely intrigued at only 11%. It isn't, the greatest matchup in the world here, but he has the ability to beat anybody and has the strikeout stuff to give you a decent floor and a huge ceiling. Max Fried, also very kind of into. And then I'm also still into Brandon Paft, although not as much with him at 8,500 on FanDuel, and even more interested on Wicks at 7,200 here on FanDuel, whereas he was 79 on DraftKings. So I think it's a pretty interesting pitcher slate. There's a lot of different ways to go. I can't go Yamamoto, even though he did look very good that last game, but still, pitch count, only 180. 68 the game before, 43 the game before that, so worried about a little limit for him as well. So let's get into stacks here and see what else we can pull up. And obviously, go Padres. We got to beat those Dodgers this weekend. Give me a couple. Give me a couple wins on them. Close that. I think it's three game difference. All right, here we go. So, let's get over to highest owned stacks. Oh no, my computer is lagging again. All right, come on. All right, there we go. So, highest owned stack is Cincinnati. It's versus Chris Flexen. Not that surprised. Cincinnati's in a very good spot. 6.25 FIP over his last 20. They got a lot of guys. They got speed. They got power. Makes some sense to want to go to Cincinnati. 9 game total is one of the higher game totals on the day. 4.9 implied total. Also one of the higher in a decent ballpark. Decent umpire for hitting. Weather is a little bit of a concern, though. Now, highest projected lineup. Goes to Atlanta. Now, I think this spot is very, very interesting. Atlanta just crushes lefties. And Trevor Rogers isn't the best pitcher in the world, so I'm very intrigued to go to Atlanta at kind of low ownership, at least for Atlanta. I mean, 46% is less than, an average of 10%, so very interesting spot. Now, 28K for salary is a ton, but you can easily go 25, 26 here, and there's a bunch of mid-range kind of pitchers that you can use, so you could absolutely pay up for Atlanta on this slate. And if we get over to the value now, all right, come on, value. All right, so our highest value is Washington versus Paul Blackburn. I do think Washington's kind of interesting. One thing, Blackburn's a little hit or miss, but Oakland's bullpen is terrible, so absolutely intriguing, kind of picking on that a little bit. They do have a little bit lower implied total, but I don't mind going there a little bit. I won't have a ton of Washington, but a little bit, totally fine with. And then if we get over to the ceiling, see what stacks pop up here. And Atlanta, Cincinnati, Texas. This Texas and Houston game is absolutely interesting. They neither have really popped up too much. JP France hasn't been great so far to start this year. He's okay, but Houston's just not playing very well right now. So Texas is interesting. They have a ton of hitters. Definitely intrigued to go there. Milwaukee is facing Tyler Wells, who is kind of just a average pitcher, and Milwaukee's been hitting the ball well, so a little interested there. I know I did said I do like Severino, and I do like him. But I'm also willing to take a little KC here. They've been hitting the ball extremely well, and they have a ceiling because of they steal bases, they hit home runs, and do a lot of things. Also, this is a great chance for me to bring up the stat that the Mets have let the most stolen bases allowed in the league by a wide margin. Royals like to run a lot, so there's very, very good chance of multiple steals from guys on that team, which just raises that floor for a stack by so much. It's hard to have multiple guys, say 3 home runs from one team in a game, but if you have 3 home runs and then 2 other guys get stolen bases, your stack can really, really score some points. So definitely intrigued by them. Obviously intrigued by Atlanta as well. And let's bring up the implied total, I believe, is Arizona for the highest. Was it? Actually, you know what? We'll just hit the team so I can do it all. Oh, Houston has the highest implied total, as well as Arizona. Both are at 5.1. Gives a great spot to talk about Houston. Dane Dunning has not been good. 4.74 FIP over his last 20, but 5.9 over his last 5. He's had a rough start to the year, allowing a ton of home runs, and Houston can definitely put the ball over the fence, so absolutely intrigued by going to them. Also don't mind a little bit of Arizona, although Matz is a decent pitcher, so I don't want to go super heavy on Arizona. Now, if we bring up this, we can look at some other kind of metrics. I'm going to do it by implied runs here. Cincinnati's at the top. This Angels and Boston game, I am pretty intrigued with. They're not getting a ton of ownership. Angels bullpen is terrible, and Reed Detmers allows a lot of fly balls. So if Boston's able to get to Detmers a little early, knock him out of the game with the wind and with everything, it's kind of interesting to take some Boston stacks. And then on the Atlanta side, Huck is allowing 44% hard, or on the Angels side, I should say, Huck's allowing 44% hard contact rate. So with the wind, he is a ground ball pitcher, but if he messes up a little bit and, it's a line drive or a pop-up, it changes him big time. Like the complexity of his arsenal just changes big time. So Angels are a little interesting as well. I don't, love ever going after the Angels, but it is intriguing. Team splits definitely going in Cincinnati, Arizona, and Houston's way. Padres have had a really bad bullpen so far. Michael King's still a young pitcher, and Dodger splits are good. I don't love the Dodger stack today, but I don't mind a smaller Dodger stack. I would not be surprised if 2 or 3 guys were able to get it done for the Dodgers. Toronto, you got to bring up them. Colorado's pitching is just absolutely terrible. Both their starting pitcher and their relief pitching. So you got to have some interest in them as well. And Atlanta, they got their Miami has their bullpen issues, and Trevor Rogers isn't great. So that'll do it for us today. Wrapped it up. Did a quick one. Got pretty much all sides of this slate, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will be back next week. Let's make some money. Good luck.